Take this job and shove it. No comment.
Does it remind you of a country song?
That was a real wall that I hit.
Johnny Paycheck's family, known for their musical talent and tumultuous history, is finally ready to reveal the secrets they've been keeping. And his family are speaking out, addressing the rumors and speculation that have surrounded them for years. From their unconventional upbringing to the surprising revelations about Johnny's past, this is your chance to take a deeper look into the life of one of country music's most intriguing figures. Let's delve the story of the man behind Take This Job and Shove It. Early life. Johnny Paycheck, born Donald Eugene Lytle on May 31, 1938, in Greenfield, Ohio, lived a life marked by hardship, rebellion, and raw talent from an early age. Growing up in a working-class family during the Great Depression, Paycheck's early years were tough. His father was a factory worker, and money was always tight. This environment fostered a rugged independence in young Donnie, who learned early on that life was a struggle. Music became an escape for Paycheck. By the age of 9, he was already performing in local talent contests, showcasing a voice that was both powerful and emotive beyond his years. His natural talent did not go unnoticed, and he quickly became a local sensation. However, the allure of the stage couldn't mask the difficulties at home, and by the age of 15, Paycheck had become a drifter. Riding the rails, he wandered across the country, playing in honky-tonks and bars under the moniker the Ohio Kid. This period of his life was defined by a restless spirit and a desire to escape the confines of his small-town upbringing. Paycheck's early experiences as a drifter and performer laid the foundation for the outlaw persona he would later embody. The hardships he faced on the road, combined with his exposure to the rough-and-tumble world of honky-tonks, shaped his music and worldview. These early years were also marked by a deep sense of rebellion against authority, a trait that would later lead to both his musical success and personal downfall. At 16, Paycheck joined the U.S. Navy, seeking a sense of purpose and direction. However, his rebellious nature soon got the better of him. During his time in the Navy, Paycheck got into a fight with an officer, an altercation that led to him spending 2 years in the brig. This incident was a clear indication of his inability to conform to the rules and regulations of traditional society, a theme that would recur throughout his life. After his discharge from the Navy, Paycheck made his way to Nashville, the epicenter of country music. Arriving in Music City, he found himself at the heart of a burgeoning music scene that was both competitive and vibrant. Under the guidance of producer Buddy Killen, Paycheck recorded several tracks for Decca and Mercury Records under the name Donnie Young. These early recordings showcased his unique vocal style, which was characterized by its intensity and emotional depth. However, commercial success remained elusive during this period, as his raw, honky-tonk sound was at odds with the more polished, pop-oriented country music that dominated the charts. Despite the lack of commercial success, Paycheck's talent was undeniable, and he quickly found work as a sideman for some of country music's biggest stars. He played bass and sang harmony for artists like Porter Wagoner, Ray Price, and Farron Young. His most significant collaboration during this time was with George Jones. Joining Jones's band in 1960, Paycheck's high harmonies became an integral part of Jones's sound, and his influence on Jones's vocal style is now widely recognized. Paycheck's time with Jones was both a learning experience and a proving ground, as he honed his craft and gained valuable exposure within the industry. In 1965, Paycheck adopted the stage name that would become synonymous with his outlaw image, Johnny Paycheck. The name was inspired by Johnny Paycheck, a Chicago-based prizefighter, and it perfectly encapsulated the no-nonsense, working-class persona he sought to project. Around this time, Paycheck teamed up with producer Aubrey Mayhew, and the two formed Little Darlin' Records. It was with Little Darlin' that Paycheck began to develop his signature sound, a blend of honky-tonk, rockabilly, and country that was gritty, raw, and unapologetically real. During the mid-1960s, Paycheck released a series of singles that, while not massive commercial hits, began to establish him as a formidable force in the country music scene. Songs like A11 and Heartbreak, Tennessee, showcased his unique ability to convey deep emotion through his powerful, tremolo-laden voice. These early recordings, characterized by their hard-edged sound and lyrical honesty, were a precursor to the outlaw country movement that would take hold in the 1970s. Paycheck's early life, marked by a blend of talent, rebellion, and relentless pursuit of his musical dreams, laid the groundwork for his later success. His experiences as a drifter, his time in the Navy, and his early struggles in Nashville all contributed to the development of the gritty, authentic persona that would make him a legend in country music. Despite the obstacles he faced, Johnny Paycheck's early years were a testament to his resilience and unwavering commitment to his craft. His big breakthrough. Johnny Paycheck's breakthrough in music is a tale of persistence, raw talent, and a unique ability to tap into the undercurrents of working-class America. After years of drifting through the country music scene, honing his craft as a sideman for some of the genre's biggest names, Paycheck finally found his voice, and an audience that resonated with his gritty, no-nonsense approach to life and music. The path to stardom was anything but straightforward, but by the mid-1970s, Paycheck had established himself as a key figure in the outlaw country movement, with a sound and style that were unmistakably his own. In the early 1970s, after a series of personal and professional setbacks, Paycheck's fortunes began to change when he caught the attention of Billy Sherrill, a legendary producer who had a knack for turning raw talent into commercial gold. Sherrill, known for his work with artists like Tammy Wynette and George Jones, recognized something in Paycheck that set him apart from the polished mainstream country acts of the day. Paycheck's voice was rough-edged and filled with emotion, and his songs spoke to the struggles and triumphs of everyday people in a way that few others could. In 1971, under Sherrill's guidance, Paycheck recorded "She's All I Got," a song that would mark the beginning of his commercial breakthrough. The track, a soulful ballad with a touch of the honky-tonk sound that Paycheck had mastered, became an immediate hit, reaching number 2 on the Billboard country charts. It was Paycheck's first major success as a solo artist, and it signaled the arrival of a new voice in country music, one that wasn't afraid to get a little rough around the edges. The success of "She's All I Got" brought Paycheck national attention and proved that his years of struggle and perseverance were beginning to pay off. Building on this momentum, Paycheck continued to work with Sherrill, and the two produced a string of hits that cemented Paycheck's place in the country music world. Songs like "Someone to Give My Love To" and "Something About You I Love" showcased Paycheck's ability to blend traditional country with the more contemporary sounds of the 1970s, creating a style that was both authentic and accessible. These songs, characterized by their rich, country-politan arrangements and Paycheck's powerful vocals, resonated with a broad audience and helped to establish him as a major force in the industry. However, it was the release of the album 11 Months and 29 Days in 1976 that truly solidified Paycheck's status as an outlaw country legend. The album, which featured a cover photo of Paycheck behind bars, was a direct reflection of his turbulent life and rebellious spirit. The title track, a semi-autobiographical song about a man serving a suspended sentence for passing a bad check, struck a chord with fans who identified with Paycheck's defiance of authority and his willingness to confront his own demons head-on. The album's raw honesty and unapologetic attitude set it apart from the more polished productions that dominated the country charts at the time, and it became a defining work of the outlaw country movement. Following the success of 11 Months and 29 Days, Paycheck released what would become his signature song, "Take This Job and Shove It." Written by fellow outlaw David Allan Coe, the song was an anthem for the working man, a defiant declaration of independence from the grind of daily labor. Released in late 1977, "Take This Job and Shove It" quickly climbed the charts, reaching number 1 on the Billboard country chart and becoming one of the biggest hits of Paycheck's career. The song's popularity was not just due to its catchy chorus and relatable lyrics, but also because it captured the frustration and anger of a generation of workers who felt disenfranchised and fed up with the status quo. "Take This Job and Shove It" became more than just a hit song. It was a cultural phenomenon. The phrase entered the American lexicon, and the song's success led to a 1981 film of the same name, further cementing Paycheck's place in pop culture. The song's impact was so profound that it helped to define the image of Johnny Paycheck as the quintessential outlaw, a man who lived by his own rules and didn't care what anyone else thought. Despite the success, Paycheck's personal life remained as tumultuous as ever. His battles with alcohol, drugs, and the law continued to make headlines, and his outlaw image was as much a product of his real-life struggles as it was a carefully crafted persona. Yet, it was precisely this authenticity, this willingness to live his life on the edge and to pour those experiences into his music, that made Paycheck so compelling to his fans. His songs weren't just stories, they were reflections of his life, filled with the kind of pain, regret, and defiance that only someone who had lived through it could convey. In the late 1970s, Paycheck continued to produce hits, with songs like Slide Off of Your Satin Sheets and I'm the Only Hell Mama Ever Raised, further establishing his reputation as a master of honky-tonk and outlaw country. But as his fame grew, so did the toll of his hard-living lifestyle. By the early 1980s, Paycheck's career began to wane, as his personal troubles overshadowed his professional achievements. He was dropped by his record label, and his legal issues, including a prison sentence for a barroom shooting, threatened to derail his career entirely. Nevertheless, Johnny Paycheck's breakthrough in the mid-1970s left an indelible mark on country music. He proved that there was an audience for the raw, unfiltered expression of working-class life, and he helped to pave the way for a new generation of country artists who weren't afraid to buck the system. His music, filled with the grit and grime of real life, remains a powerful testament to the enduring appeal of the outlaw country genre, and his legacy as one of its most iconic figures is secure. The struggles and no-care-giving persona. Johnny Paycheck's life was a tumultuous journey filled with struggles, legal battles, and a series of personal demons that often overshadowed his musical achievements. While he reached the heights of fame as a country music star, his path was littered with self-destructive behavior, legal troubles, and periods of deep despair that ultimately defined much of his public persona. Paycheck's struggles began early in his life. Growing up in a working-class family during the Great Depression, he experienced hardship and poverty from a young age. These early struggles ingrained in him a deep sense of rebellion against authority and a disdain for the societal structures that he felt oppressed people like him. This rebellious streak would follow him throughout his life, often leading him into conflict with the law and contributing to his notorious reputation as an outlaw. One of the most significant periods of Paycheck's life that set the stage for his later troubles occurred during his time in the U.S. Navy. After enlisting at the age of 16, Paycheck found himself at odds with the strict discipline of military life. His rebellious nature led to a violent altercation with an officer, which resulted in Paycheck spending 2 years in the brig. This early experience with the military justice system was a precursor to the many legal battles he would face throughout his life. It also solidified his image as a man who could not be tamed by conventional authority, a theme that would resonate throughout his music and personal life. As Paycheck's music career began to take off in the 1960s and 1970s, so too did his struggles with substance abuse. He became heavily involved with alcohol and drugs, which fueled much of his erratic behavior and led to a series of legal troubles. Despite his growing success as a musician, Paycheck's addiction issues spiraled out of control, leading to increasingly destructive behavior. His hard-drinking, pill-popping lifestyle became legendary, but it also took a severe toll on his health, relationships, and career. One of the most notorious incidents in Paycheck's life occurred in the mid-1970s, when he was convicted of passing a bad check. This legal trouble was compounded by a string of other issues, including a paternity suit, tax problems, and bankruptcy. These financial and legal woes reflected the chaotic nature of his life at the time, as he struggled to balance his growing fame with the personal demons that continued to haunt him. In 1976, Paycheck's album, 11 Months and 29 Days, was released, its title referencing the length of his suspended sentence for the bad check incident. The album cover featured Paycheck behind bars, a stark symbol of the increasingly blurred lines between his outlaw persona and his real-life legal troubles. The album's success only seemed to intensify Paycheck's self-destructive behavior, as he continued to push the boundaries of acceptable behavior both on and off stage. As Paycheck's fame grew, so did his reputation for unruly behavior. In one infamous incident, he was sued by a flight attendant for slander after he started a fight on a plane. This episode was just one of many where Paycheck's volatile temper and penchant for violence led to legal consequences. His erratic behavior made him a frequent target of lawsuits, and his growing list of legal troubles began to overshadow his musical career. Perhaps the most significant legal battle of Paycheck's life came in December 1985, when he was involved in a barroom altercation in Hillsboro, Ohio. The incident began as a heated argument between Paycheck and a stranger, which quickly escalated into violence. Paycheck, who was armed at the time, pulled out a .22 caliber pistol and shot the man in the head, grazing him and causing minor injuries. The altercation led to Paycheck being charged with aggravated assault. Paycheck's trial in 1986 was a highly publicized affair, as his outlaw image had made him a notorious figure in the media. Despite his claims of self-defense, Paycheck was convicted and sentenced to 9 years in prison. He spent 2 years in the Chillicothe Correctional Institute before being released on parole in January 1991. His time in prison was a sobering experience for Paycheck, who had become a born-again Christian around 1988. During his incarceration, he performed a prison concert with Merle Haggard, another country music legend with his own history of legal troubles. This concert was a symbolic moment for Paycheck, as it marked a turning point in his life and career. Upon his release from prison, Paycheck made a concerted effort to turn his life around. He maintained his sobriety and began speaking out against the dangers of drug and alcohol abuse, giving talks to young people as part of his community service. Despite his efforts to rehabilitate his image and career, the damage had been done. Paycheck's health, already deteriorating due to years of substance abuse and hard living, continued to decline in the years following his release. In the late 1990s, Paycheck's health took a turn for the worse. He suffered from a variety of ailments, including emphysema and asthma, which were exacerbated by his years of smoking and drinking. Despite his attempts to revive his career, including recording a live album in 1999, his health issues eventually forced him to step back from performing. Paycheck's final years were marked by a sense of regret for the choices he had made, as he struggled with the physical and emotional toll of his tumultuous life, turning his life around and eventual death. In the later years of Johnny Paycheck's life, the once hard-living country music outlaw underwent a profound transformation, one that saw him turn away from the destructive behaviors that had defined much of his career and embrace a path of redemption and spirituality. The road to this transformation was long and fraught with challenges, but it ultimately led to a man who, in the face of declining health and mounting regrets, sought solace in faith and a renewed sense of purpose. By the mid-1980s, Paycheck's career was in steep decline. The commercial success he had enjoyed in the 1970s, particularly with his hit "Take This Job and Shove It," had largely evaporated, overshadowed by his legal troubles, substance abuse, and increasingly erratic behavior. His infamous barroom brawl in Hillsboro, Ohio, in December 1985, which resulted in him shooting a man in the head during an altercation, was a turning point. Although the victim survived with only minor injuries, the incident led to Paycheck being convicted of aggravated assault and sentenced to 9 years in prison. This sentence, which began in 1989, marked the beginning of a period of intense reflection and change for the beleaguered singer. While incarcerated at the Chillicothe Correctional Institute, Paycheck experienced a spiritual awakening that would shape the remainder of his life. The isolation of prison and the stark reality of his situation forced him to confront the consequences of his actions and the destructive path he had been on for decades. During this time, Paycheck became a born-again Christian, a decision that would deeply influence his outlook and actions in the years that followed. His newfound faith provided him with a sense of hope and direction that had been absent for much of his life, offering a path toward redemption that he eagerly embraced. In addition to his spiritual transformation, Paycheck's time in prison was marked by a renewed focus on his music, albeit within the constraints of his incarceration. He performed a prison concert with fellow country legend Merle Haggard, himself no stranger to the criminal justice system. The concert was a symbolic moment, representing not just a reunion of two country outlaws, but also a public acknowledgement of the ways in which their lives had been shaped by their struggles with the law and their subsequent efforts to turn their lives around. For Paycheck, it was an opportunity to reconnect with his roots and to use his music as a means of expressing the deep changes occurring within him. After serving 2 years of his sentence, Paycheck was released on parole in January 1991. His release marked the beginning of a new chapter in his life, one in which he was determined to live according to the principles of his newfound faith. He committed to maintaining his sobriety, a monumental challenge given his long history of addiction to alcohol and drugs. Paycheck also began speaking out against substance abuse, giving talks to young people as part of his court-mandated community service. These talks were a way for Paycheck to give back to society and to warn others about the dangers of the lifestyle that had nearly destroyed him. Upon his release, Paycheck also attempted to revive his music career. While his days of topping the charts were behind him, he continued to perform, recording new material and touring the country. He made appearances in Branson, Missouri, a popular destination for country music fans, and released a live album recorded at Gilley's in 1999. However, despite these efforts, his career never regained the momentum it once had, and Paycheck found himself increasingly sidelined by the country music industry, which had moved on to newer, younger stars. In addition to the challenges of reviving his career, Paycheck faced mounting health issues that would come to dominate his final years. Decades of hard living had taken a severe toll on his body, and he suffered from a range of ailments, including emphysema and asthma, which were exacerbated by his years of heavy smoking. These health problems increasingly limited his ability to perform, and by the late 1990s, Paycheck found himself frequently hospitalized due to respiratory issues. In January 1998, Paycheck was airlifted to a hospital in Albuquerque, New Mexico, after suffering a severe asthma attack. This incident was one of many health scares that marked his later years, each one underscoring the fragility of his condition. Despite his declining health, Paycheck continued to express his commitment to his faith and his determination to live out his remaining years in accordance with the values he had embraced during his time in prison. In 1997, Paycheck achieved a significant milestone when he was inducted as a member of the Grand Ole Opry, a recognition of his contributions to country music and his status as one of its most iconic figures. The induction was a bittersweet moment for Paycheck, as it came at a time when his health was deteriorating, but it also served as a validation of his legacy in the country music world. During these final years, Paycheck remained active in the music community. Despite his health challenges, he contributed a recitation to Daryl Singletary's 2002 album, That's Why I Sing This Way, recording a new version of his classic song, Old Violin. The recording session took place from Paycheck's bed, as his health no longer allowed him to go to a studio. This final contribution was a poignant reminder of Paycheck's enduring influence on country music, even as his physical condition declined. By early 2003, Paycheck's health had worsened to the point where he was unable to continue performing or recording. His breathing problems, which had plagued him for years, became increasingly severe, and he was confined to his home, where he was cared for by his wife, Sharon. Despite the pain and difficulty of his final days, Paycheck remained committed to his faith, finding comfort in the belief that he had been forgiven for his past sins and that he was at peace with himself. Johnny Paycheck passed away in his sleep on February 18, 2003, at the age of 64. His death marked the end of a life that had been defined by its extremes, both in the heights of his musical success and the depths of his personal struggles. In the years since his passing, Paycheck's legacy has continued to grow, with his music being rediscovered by new generations of country fans who appreciate the raw honesty and rebellious spirit that he brought to his work. While his life was marred by tragedy and turmoil, Johnny Paycheck's final years were a testament to the possibility of redemption and the power of faith to transform even the most troubled lives. His journey from the depths of addiction and legal troubles to a place of spiritual peace serves as a powerful reminder that it is never too late to change course and seek a better path. In the end, Paycheck found the peace he had long sought, leaving behind a legacy as one of country music's most authentic and enduring voices. The legacy of Johnny Paycheck. Johnny Paycheck's life was one of extremes, marked by the highs of musical success and the lows of personal turmoil. As his career progressed, Paycheck's behavior became increasingly erratic, driven by his struggles with alcohol, drugs, and a volatile temper. These issues not only sabotaged his career, but also earned him a reputation as one of the most difficult and disliked figures in country music. However, in a remarkable turnaround, Paycheck ultimately found redemption, rebuilding his life and earning back the respect of those who had once written him off. Throughout the 1970s and early 1980s, Johnny Paycheck's reputation within the music industry deteriorated rapidly. His wild lifestyle, characterized by heavy drinking, drug use, and frequent run-ins with the law, made him a pariah among his peers. His infamous temper led to numerous altercations, both on and off stage, and his unreliability as a performer caused many to distance themselves from him. The situation was compounded by his repeated legal troubles, including arrests for drug possession, public intoxication, and assault, which only further alienated those around him. Paycheck's combative personality extended beyond his interactions with the law. He was notorious for his difficult relationships with fellow musicians, producers, and industry executives. Many who worked with him found him unpredictable and hard to manage, leading to a string of broken professional relationships. His behavior on tour was often erratic, with canceled shows, missed rehearsals, and onstage outbursts becoming all too common. This culminated in several high-profile incidents, including an altercation with a flight attendant that resulted in a lawsuit and a much-publicized brawl in a bar in Hillsboro, Ohio, where Paycheck shot a man in the head during an argument. The barroom shooting in 1985 was a turning point in Paycheck's life, leading to his conviction for aggravated assault and a 9-year prison sentence. By this time, Paycheck was at rock bottom. His once promising career was in shambles, his personal life was in disarray, and his reputation was tarnished beyond repair. Many in the country music community believed that Paycheck had squandered his talent and that his career was effectively over. He had alienated nearly everyone who had once supported him, leaving him isolated and despised. However, it was during his time in prison that Paycheck began to confront the consequences of his actions and the destructive path he had been on for decades. The isolation of incarceration forced him to reflect on his life and the choices that had led him there. Stripped of the trappings of fame and fortune, Paycheck found himself at a crossroads. It was in this dark period that he experienced a profound spiritual awakening, becoming a born-again Christian. This newfound faith provided him with the strength to face his past and the motivation to seek redemption. Paycheck's conversion to Christianity marked the beginning of a remarkable turnaround in his life. Upon his release from prison in 1991, he was determined to rebuild his life and make amends for the mistakes he had made. He committed to staying sober, a significant challenge given his long history of addiction, and began speaking out against substance abuse. As part of his court-mandated community service, Paycheck traveled across the country, giving talks to young people about the dangers of drugs and alcohol. These talks were not just a means of fulfilling his legal obligations, they were a way for Paycheck to use his experiences to help others avoid the pitfalls that had nearly destroyed him. In addition to his public speaking, Paycheck attempted to revive his music career, though the road back was far from easy. The country music industry had largely moved on from the outlaw movement that he had once been a part of, and the commercial success he had enjoyed in the 1970s was now a distant memory. Despite this, Paycheck continued to perform and record, with a renewed focus on his faith and a desire to create music that reflected his spiritual journey. He made several appearances in Branson, Missouri, a hub for country music performances, and recorded a live album at Gilley's in 1999. One of the most significant moments in Paycheck's comeback was his induction into the Grand Ole Opry in 1997. This recognition was a testament to his enduring influence on country music, Despite the many challenges he had faced, the induction was a deeply meaningful moment for Paycheck, symbolizing not just his contributions to the genre, but also his personal redemption. For a man who had been written off by so many, it was a powerful validation of his efforts to turn his life around. Paycheck's health, however, continued to decline, the result of years of hard living. He suffered from emphysema and asthma, conditions that frequently landed him in the hospital and eventually limited his ability to perform. Despite these setbacks, Paycheck remained committed to his faith and continued to share his story of redemption with others. His final years were marked by a quiet dignity as he sought to make peace with his past and live out his remaining days in accordance with the values he had embraced during his time in prison. In the end, Johnny Paycheck's story is one of both tragedy and redemption.